It's my honor to make this speech for you. The theme of my speech today is racial discrimination on the substantive inequality between Australian Aborigines and the Torres Strait Islanders in law and society. First of all, let's look at the plight of Australia's Indigenous people. In the 140-year history of Australia, there have been at least 270 border massacres, which is part of the efforts of the state to approve and organize the elimination of indigenous people. As a result of the state-sanctioned genocide of the Holocaust, the indigenous population decreased from an estimated 1 to 1.5 million before the white invasion to less than 100,000 and at the beginning of the 20th century. But to this day, they still face marginalization in all aspects of social life, which means that the indigenous people and the Torres Strait Islanders are still one of the most vulnerable groups in Australia, such as unemployment, physical violence, domestic violence, and sexual violence. And the relatively high incarceration rate with the indigenous people filling 1/3 of the prisons with less than 3% of the total population. This is unimaginable. Similar problems have been very prominent in the United States, so the BLM movement came into being. It is an international human rights movement organized from the African American community to protect against violence and systematic discrimination against Black. Australia also held this march. Black life is also life. And rallies were held throughout Australia to protest against the treatment and the killing of indigenous people. This movement was mainly due to the unfair treatment of a 26-year-old indigenous Tonga in prison. The guards rushed to his cell to stop him from eating biscuits and dragged him to another cell, then pressed his face and injected him with sedatives. Before he died, he said 12 times that he could not breathe. Like American Black Freud, I can't breathe, is his last words. This caused a great censure in Australian society. Yes, we need a social change. That's improving social inequalities and achieving greater equality. Change the invisible social structures. We don't think of whiteness in terms of rights. White people should not have privileges. We should treat them equally. We should work from intersectionality and race perspective. Don't miss anyone's demand for survival. Focus on the social changes that need to happen and listen to the voice of the mentally handicapped and the minority. At least they should have the right to speak. Let's take a brief look at intersectionality. Intersectionality as an analytical tool enables people to better understand the complexity of the world and themselves. So from this perspective, let's understand the impact of indigenous-related topics on indigenous individuals and Australian society. We should know that this is not only an indigenous issue, but also a human rights issue that all Australians need to face. At the same time, social inequality will undermine social justice and human rights. There are four benefits of focusing on this issue. At the same time, social inequality will undermine social justice and human rights. First, a large number of Australians have participated in the BLM movement to speak for Indigenous people, which shows a series of important issues related to the Australian criminal justice system. Second, it provides a platform and the source for minority groups to speak. We should support efforts to protect the rights of indigenous people in Australia and vulnerable groups around the world. Third, it helps to realize the equal rights between Australian, indigenous, and white. Helps to properly solve the world human rights problems and provides them with experience. It will also help properly solve the world human rights problem. Fourth, it will lay a new foundation for the long-term stability of Australia. That's all I say, and forgive my poor English. Thank you.